Okay, so here we are in the main level, and what we're going to do is set up red light, green light. We're going to set up the actual game mode in this episode. So if we just click play here, this is what we have up to now. We have a stamina system, we have a little bit of a health system, which we're going to use later, but not going to worry about that right now. Let's just set up this red light, green light, and the ability for the doll's head to turn, and if we're running, basically, it's going to kill us, okay? So we need to make the doll's head, well, the doll's head kind of turns, but let's do it properly. So we're going to select the pivot point here because this is the bit where we are going to be rotating it. And we're going to do this with the use of a timeline. So I'm going to show you how you can set that up. Now, before we do that, let's actually just set up this here. What we're going to do is search for an event tick, and then we are going to add a delay. And this delay is going to be a random float. So we're going to delay it in a random amount of time, basically. A time between, let's say, like 1 and 5 seconds. You can do whatever you want, really. We'll tailor this later because it needs to fit the actual game for it to feel good. And it needs to fit in with the audio that we're going to add later. So every time between 2.5 and 5 seconds right now, we're going to call this delay. And then we'll call this event that we're going to put in afterwards. Yeah, so any time between 2.5 and 5 seconds, we're actually going to call this event here. And we shall rename this head rotation. And like I said before, the part of the doll that we're going to be rotating is the pivot point. So let's actually just search for a timeline and just rename this whatever you want. There we go, we can delete these two nodes out of the event graph, and then we can actually just go into our timeline. Let's just move that to play from start first. And let's add a quick variable called is red light. And we can actually just set this out of finished. So if we just hook this up and select true, now every time this doll's head rotates to the like facing us, it's going to say, oh, it's red light, basically. Okay, so what we need to do now is go into the timeline, and we're going to add a new track, just like I have here, by clicking the track button, and you can rename this whatever you want. Right, well, as you can see, post-process, I kind of messed up my editing here. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually just going to go and recreate this little timeline bit right now. So a bit of a live action right here. The problem is I was trying to rotate it between 0 and minus 180, but I realized I had the doll backwards for 1, and then for 2, we had the relative rotation and all that kind of stuff. It'll make sense a little bit better now. Watch this. So if I go into my project here, this is what I was trying to explain to you, and it looks a little bit complex. I don't know if anybody's new watching this video, but trust me, it's really not that bad. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to recreate this line of code here. So let's actually just create a new timeline like this, and I'm not going to set a name for this. We're going to change this to 1.5, just like that in the length. The track is going to be a float track, and then just do whatever there. Add a curve, and it's going to be 0 and 0 for the time and value. Add another curve, and it's going to be time 1.5 and 1. So basically it's going to take 1.5 seconds for the doll's head to rotate 180. So right, let me just show you. If I click pivot, and mate, how do I even change this? I can't remember. I'm on the new version of Unreal, and it's so annoying till I rotate stuff. There we go. Yeah, so the time on this timeline is 1.5 seconds. So basically what it's going to do, it's going to take 1.5 seconds for it to go from 0 to 1, like that. Okay, that hopefully makes sense for you. So let's actually do that. So we actually need to get red light here, just like this. I'm going to connect that up to finished and select that as true, just like that. Then we get the pivot point like I just shown you. We set, no, it is set relative location like this. Hook this up into here, and these, the basically the way we get these is by right clicking and splitting the struct pin, just like this. So with the pivot point, we can actually copy and paste it just like this. We're going to get the rel, get relative rotation, and we can do the same here. Split the struct pins, line that up nicely, and then we're going to warp from this. So warp, and it is going to be vector. But as you can see, we need to actually split the struct again. So we're going from the current value to the value that we want. So let's just hook these up like that. And then the B, so it's 0, 0, 0 now. Let's just, no, sorry, it is 0, 0, and 180, as you can see in the top right. If it was 0, 0, 0, it would be like this. And this is kind of what was messing me up before. So we want to go from 180 to 0. Yeah. So how we do that is we start at minus 180. Oops. Minus 180, just like this. And then we go from A to B. And split this right here. And then 1, 2, and 3. Oops. Just like that. And that is basically how I did all this. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, that's for the bottom bit. And make sure we do it into play from start. For the top bit, it's the exact same code. But we're starting at 0. Sorry, no, we're ending on 0. Like this. Yeah? Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so with that all sorted, what we're going to do is go to event tick. And we're just going to call this head rotation code. Well, custom event that we just created a minute ago. And I've just removed the other nodes, so I'm just going to re-add them now. So it was delay and then a random flow in range. And then whatever time that you fancy. Compile, save, and then that will call that every few seconds. So let's have a look. There we go. The doll's head's rotating, and then after a few seconds, well, a random few seconds in that time, it'll rotate back. Okay, so what we need to do now is set up a def event for our player character. So I'm just going to create a new custom event, and basically what I want this to do is disable the movement, disable our input, and also like simulate physics. So it looks like we've just been like shot, which we'll add later, don't worry. We'll add like I don't know, stuff like bullets flying and gunshot sounds and a load of other cool stuff, so we'll get onto that later. So right now, just rename this custom event def, and I'm just deleting some of the unused variables that I was testing with. So out of def, what do we need? Okay, so let's drag out of here. We're going to get a delay node to begin with. And then we're going to drag out of def again and disable the input. So we've got a disable input, and then we've got a delay node. Now you can add your player controller and you can add your reference to self later if you want. I'm just going to add a delay of 1 second for now, and then we're just going to destroy the actor. So let's just plug in the other stuff here. We need a target, and we can just get a reference to self, and we can also get a player controller. I'm not sure if this actually matters because we're inside the BP third person character, but it's just best practice to do it anyway. Sometimes it doesn't actually require it, but it still messes it up, so you're better off just doing it. Now, just to test that this is working, I'm going to go to the sequence node. I'm going to drag out and search for a delay. 2 seconds, and then we're going to call our def event. Just like this. So it's just calling the line of code above. So when we start our game, it should wait for 2 seconds, and then boom, like restart. Wait, there we go. As you can see, that's working fine. And now you can go ahead and just delete them too. I was just doing it for testing purposes. Trust me, it's always best to just like test little things like that just to make sure something's not messing up. So let's just make a new variable and check that the player's dead. So new variable here, click the little plus and rename it as dead with a question mark, and then we can drag out while holding Alt and just set this variable here. Click the true icon. So we're setting the variable as true when the death event is called. And then what we're going to do is go into the BP third person character. We're going to cast to the BP doll, so we get a reference to the doll, just like this. Let's search for get owner because I can't remember what the object type is. Out of here, let's just promote it to a variable. Then we can actually access the variables inside the BP doll. And the one we want to reference is the is red light. And then we're going to print the string, hold Alt, and just drag up where it says print screen into string, and it should print it on our screen. And it is not. Right, so what I'm going to do, actually, I'm just going to change these two nodes here. So instead of casting, I'm just going to get all actors of class. Yeah, so out of event tick, I'm going to get actors of class, just like this. And then it's going to be BP doll, and then we're going to promote that to a variable. So let's just delete the other one, promote to a variable. And then hook that into it. Now let's just connect the print string up, and now this should print if it is red light or green light. So there we go, it is false, and then when the doll's head's turned, it will turn to true. Right, sweet. So we need to check a few more things. We're going to check that this is working correctly. So out of red light, we need to do equals equals to see if it is equal to true, and if it is, then we will destroy the actor. So let's just connect that up by that. And then out of true, we can just call a destroy actor. So when the red light turns, well, when the doll's head turns and it is red light, it'll just kill us basically. So we're false, and now we're true, and there we go. It destroys the actor. Now it's a bit glitchy, but we'll sort it out in a sec, don't worry. The next thing we need to do is a AND boolean, because we need to check if the character is also moving. So we only want it to happen when the red light is red. Wait, when the red light's true and the character is moving. So if it's a little bit confusing, I am confused myself. I've been so ill making this tutorial, but I just had to get it out. So we're going to do an exclamation point and an equal sign to get a not equal node. Just like this, and then we're going to hook that up with the value as 0.001, like that. So now if our character moves and it is red light, then it should kill our character. So let's just test it with the doll's head to turn, and then it should kill us. There we go. Now we did get a couple of errors, and this is from the stamina system that we set up earlier, so we just need to make sure we validate stuff before we actually call it, because it's trying to access the variable basically while the player is while the actor's been destroyed. So like we're killing our character, and then the engine's like, well, where's the stamina? Like, where's all the stuff for that? So yeah, we need to make sure it is valid. So we're now in the WB stats that we created in the earlier episodes, and what we need to do is just drag out of here, get the TPC reference, connect that up, make sure it's a validated get. You can do that by right clicking and choosing validated get. We're just going to hook this up into target, and then we can play, and we shouldn't have any errors now. As you can see, everything's working, and we'll see once we actually move and it destroys the actor. So we're going to destroy the actor right now. Right, that's been destroyed, and it's still trying to access the variables, but it shouldn't give us an error because we've said, well, don't do that unless it's valid. So out of true, before we actually destroy the actor, we actually want to disable the input, like that. Then we need to also disable the movement. and the target will be the character movement. We're doing this in the BP third person character, make sure we're doing it in there. Then the target is going to get a reference to self, and we're going to just get player controller. Just like that. So what this will do, out of true, if the red light is true and we are moving, it'll just basically disable movement, disable input, and kill the player. And for some reason, my death event decided to just evaporate, so we're going to actually create another one. So let's just create a new event and rename it death event, just like that. And then we're just going to basically hook everything in to here. So let's just get rid of that, hook all this into here, and then we can just call this event whenever we want. So let's just move it over here, just to keep it nice and tidy, and then out of true we can actually just call the event there. Okay, so what I want to do now is simulate the physics as well. So just after the disable movement and before the delay, we actually want to just set simulate physics, and it's going to be mesh as the target, check simulate, and then once it kills us, it should simulate the physics, but it might throw us through the map, so let's just test it. There we go. Yep, it threw us through the map. Right, so the reason it's doing that is because the collision is not set up correctly, so we need to select mesh, go to collision, and we're going to change this down to pawn. So, where's pawn? There it is. And now if we click play, and then our player gets killed, it will simulate the physics. There we go. Just like we've been shot. Lovely. So what we're going to do next is we're actually going to set up this slow motion effect near the finish line. So when we're near the finish line, it's going to like make the game go in complete like slow motion to give it a bit more like, I don't know, a little bit more something to the game. Yeah, we'll be setting up that in the next episode, and we're also going to be refining the red light, green light to make it run a little bit better. Okay, so if you're interested in the project files, they're all on my Patreon. Like the video, subscribe, and I will catch you next time. Peace.